Things are going to start happening to me now.
I think Tyler is amazing.
And I'm a fan of this show. I've watched several episodes.
Thank you, Tyler. Thank you, Tyler. You stink, Tyler.
Never promise crazy a baby.
Oh, I like that. That's a cool idea.
Are either of you homosexuals?
I go both ways. What do you think?
You mean like flaming or?
No, we're not homosexual, but we are willing to learn.
But I do wonder, for others, in other cases, whether libertarianism today is just an excuse for many on the right to act selfishly.
Look at me. And then some fat asses in Washington started having opinions. The Olympic Committee started having opinions. You bitch, I know you. You started writing your opinions.
And it just makes me wonder, you're dead, bitch. You know, why are you doing this to this poor guy?
I don't care. I'm a libertarian. What I'm getting is,
Did you vote for Joe Jorgensen or Trump?
Who?
Joe Jorgensen. That was the perfect answer. Thank you.
Welcome, everybody. Libertarian LPR, Libertarian Podcast Radio, LPR. Only slightly late and gay. That is correct. That's a new open. I've got to do some different stuff here. And by the way, sorry I'm late. I had everything set up and ready to go, and I'm having tech problems. Okay, I hope everyone can hear me. Hope everything is going fine. But here is kind of what we're looking at right now, which is, hey, this channel got over 1,000 subs, so we can monetize this bitch. So, which we are doing. However, to actually make that work, I'm not saying you guys, do money or what, but we're getting views and we're hopping up ourselves on views. So when you do that, you can do ad revenues, whatever. I used these great songs in my open, which was by Muse, and I loved it. Nothing pounds out quite like good actual people who make good music instead of this copyright free. And none of that stuff was able to be monetized because I had copyright strikes all over the place, which I never cared about before. So, and thanks, Daniel. Congrats on the way. And thanks to everyone here who's done this. We're making a little bit of a fun community. Okay, so that's one thing. The open is new. I hope you enjoyed it, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to have to do this kind of things to avoid the copyright shit. But once again, we're over on Rumble as well, so you can go check us out over there. And on Twitter, follow us everywhere you can, blah, blah, blah. Now, I have other technical problems. I had this whole thing set up earlier in the week with the transcripts blocked out, everything. And then I go to load it up today in OBS and they are not pulling from there. And I didn't have time to try to find all of them again and latch them back in to do what we needed to do. So I'm not I'm not using OBS, which is a problem for me because I had everything all correct and uploaded there. But we're going to still try to do what we can, for some of this. And so I will give you a little bit. Last week after I did the show and we did we did a little bit of the transcripts. Then I saw that there were more transcripts that had been released. And I'm like, geez, what's going on? So I was going to do a show earlier in the week. That didn't work out. My week is, I don't know how these other guys do it. Oh, come on, Shannon. You're kidding me. You're not gonna, thank you very much. Congrats. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. You don't have to be doing that, but I appreciate it. Anyway, so I saw that there was more transcript stuff released, and I wanted to see that. And some of it is difficult to find with the Kiwi Farms because I'm not over in there. I'm not, doing all that stuff. So I'm trying to find this kind of stuff. So I finally did. I redacted what I had. And like I said, it didn't turn up here, but I thought we would at least go through some of this stuff. The kids are back with Nick. We talked about that a little bit, and Nick is talking about some more stuff. And I think there is some clarification. He just had Dick Masterson on, who is annoying to me, and I try not to watch it, but there was that Elisa chick was doing clips, and so there were some good ones, kind of him talking. He makes some good points. I'm not going to go over all of them. Some of this is that we've gone hard on Nick, but the problem is there's verifiable stuff that is he just lies about. So when that is happening, it makes you wonder what is going on and what the problem. Magoo, take my money and congrats. I appreciate it. And by the way, I started listening to your episode again the other day. So thanks. Well done. Go check out Magoo's podcast, everybody. It's Ignore the Rant. I don't know if it's active, but yeah, every once in a while he puts out an episode. So there's some things Nick says that are quality. One, and we don't know everything, but when he's lied about multiple aspects, then it makes it hard. And when he obfuscates and tears things down a little bit. It also makes it difficult. One aspect is, according to him, that remember, we've said, why are you talking? Your attorney, you've hired your attorney to do this. He's got this, Miss Weber. According to Nick, they are court-appointed counsel. So it seems odd, but for a civil issue, but evidently in Minnesota, they do that. And so he got a court-appointed counsel. Now, even with the court-appointed counsel in criminal, you don't have to use the public defender. You can use your own counsel. You can pro per. You can represent yourself. So with that in mind, you don't have to do. So Nick's complaining that this attorney doesn't know shit, and that it's just a small county, and there's just 2 attorneys that always get assigned to these cases, and they wouldn't even talk to him. He said, and I'm like, well, you can talk to. I have clients that reach out to me all the time. I mean, if you're not doing what you're supposed to, you can reach out to them as a client. So that's a little odd. And why, Dick didn't push back and say, why didn't you get your own attorney? And I think he has got his own attorney at this point, but you look at some of these early on things, that was part of it. Next on the hair follicle test, he makes some complaints and comments about that as well, how it, obviously, and I said this, that there's no way they put the kids back if that test wasn't either thrown out or inconclusive or what have you, but they did, that test was a problem to begin with. So they had to obviously take a look at it and make some determination from there. He makes some other claims. We don't always know everything. So I've tried to go into this with the skepticism, and I know there's a guys out there, Coat Meme. He does some great work. Legal Mindset. Andrew's done great stuff. Sean has done some great stuff. And a lot of them, I like, especially Sean as an example. I don't know Sean's motivation, but it's hard to be okay when all Nick does is just trash on you online. Like, so he just said, someone wants the body cam footage. So Nick then pulls out and says, it's telling that the Kiwi Farms, the guy that did it, is a pedo. And I'm like, okay, but what does that have to do with him asking for the body? Does that mean the body cam footage isn't correct? That somehow I get I get to say, you know what? A pedophile asked for the body cam footage. Therefore, one, he doesn't get it. Well, that doesn't mean anything. Or 2, and by the way, you're a libertarian, Nick. You should be able to. Are you saying that maybe I shouldn't even go down that route. That's an age of consent type of argument so we can make and all this stuff. The point with this is it's a bad argument to be saying just because someone's a bad character doesn't mean he's not entitled to public records. That's completely ridiculous and stupid. So, with the big bucks there. Thanks. Okay, so with that in mind, there are 2 distinct and I don't know which one we want to look at first. There's Barber and then there is Sweeps. And they both are, maybe we go with Barbers first. And it might be a little bit different. These are 2 people that are testifying in court. We'll walk over them and take a look at, let's see if we can do this. Okay. I think that's where it is. Okay, Danielle says the pedo asked for the copy of the search warrant. Nick is misleading people. Okay, by the way, it doesn't matter what he asked for. It doesn't matter a lick what he asked for. The question, you think the police or the courts are going to be, whether they release that, they go, oh, this guy's a pedo. No. Well, maybe it depends on what the question is, but typically they're not doing a background check on you to see if they can give you your documents, the documents you've asked for. Nick is a major dickhead to Sean, potentially criminal, not on one of Nick's streams a few months back. Nick brought all of this on himself. I'm Team Sean. I that's what Migu says. I completely agree. I've seen, and by the way, when this started, Sean and a bunch of these were trying to break this down. And I think Sean, by the way, Sean, I'll just say that I should probably get in contact with him and see if he'd want to come on the show or whatnot. Of all the people that are out there kind of doing this, the more high profile, because I don't consider myself that high profile in that sense. He seems to be the most involved practicing attorney, him and Joe, but even Joe Neerman, I don't know if Joe's doing a ton of practice. It seems like to me, Sean is just, I don't know if he's married or whatnot, but he has a lot of time to stream. That blows me away if you guys do that. But I think he's also practicing law, like myself. I mean, I came from work today. Okay. Putty Leather says, I see your point that I think the greater moral is that Kiwi farmers call innocent people pedophiles to slander them, while some of them, not all, are pedophiles. Okay. By the way, I will just, Sean is engaged. Congratulations, Sean. But Does that mean that, you know, he has kids? I've got a wife here. I've got a lot going on. I'm not putting anything on. I'm just telling you, with my own life and my responsibilities and stuff, I'm just like, how do you do this? Maybe he didn't have kids. I don't know. Back to Patty Leather's. I am not highly involved at all with Kiwi Farms. Matter of fact, the first I've ever done was I just created an account this week so I can more easily find documents on there. That's only thing I'm interested. I don't know the backstory of all this. I get it. If he's saying, oh, they're always calling people pedophiles, and then look, one of them is a pedophile. Could be. Who knows what it is? That's my only point there. Okay, let's take a look here at this document and go through it. I'm going to try to go through some of this stuff. Once again, it's very hard to read some of these documents. The court. All right. Thank you. All of the witnesses. Ms. Pierce, I would call Christy Barber, Your Honor. The court. All right. Ms. Barber, do you want to come forward and I'll swear you in? Ms. Barber, Christy Barber. Something been first duly affirmed was examined and testified as to your affirmation as follows. The court. All right. You may be seated. The witness. Thank you. You may proceed, Ms. Pierce. By Ms. Pierce. Can you please state your full name and spell your last name for the record? Christy Barber, B-A-R-B-E-R. And what is your occupation? I am a state Minnesota employee. Okay. Look, by the way, I'm not thrilled about that. Okay. We'll just say that. I'm called a guardian ad litem, a gal. She's a gal. What is your role of a guardian ad litem? We have several roles defined in the Minnesota statute. Okay, let's see if I could go here. Hopefully this is going to work. Okay. But essentially, we are the advocate for 10 something interest factors of children in juvenile family court proceedings. And you're the guardian ad litem appointed to this case. Yes, I have been. And do you have an opinion? I'm not going to always go Q, A, and who it is. You're just going to have to kind of get the idea as I read it here. And do you have an opinion as to about whether continued placement in foster care of the children is best interest or not? By the way, I was going to come in here because I want to see. Okay, I'm not gonna read all of this verbatim because it's already out there, but I'm gonna go through a lot of it and kind of get some of the good stuff. I hear Nick talking today, and by the way, I've avoided his streams because it's cringe. But you don't always know it's truth. So it just happened last week. Client came in, I can't tell you the whole thing, but he or she is telling me why they have supervised visits. Okay. So there's a case in place, and it's a new client. She signs up with me. She's already, they're already going through divorce. They've been doing this for several years. And now I'm getting involved in the middle. She finally had some money. She's getting out of rehab. Okay, fine. Tells me the reason why she's, the kids got taken away from her, and says some things, and he's not a great dad, and I get it. So I'm telling her before I get I sign up for the case, you file your substitution of attorney, and then at least in this county, you get to be able to see all the documents that have been filed, the family court services reports and whatnot, and so I get it. She not too organized, didn't have her full file. Fine. So in the meantime, I'm telling her, okay, here's what we're going to do. Here's some steps, And then I finally get the court documents and I look and I read through there and I see what happened as to why this happened. And I'm like, oh, it's a bit different than what she said. One, she just smoothed it over. She took responsibility, but it was the wrong responsibility. Okay. So smooth some things over and you're just like, oh, okay, I see how this happens. And I've talked about this a lot with like libertarian stuff or what have you, as far as fathers' rights issues, right? Dads come in there and they're like, I've got hosed, they're on a guy wrote a book, The Respondent, right? And it's back here. And he's talking about how since he is the respondent, that's why he got hosed. Okay, all this stuff, and then when you find the documents and you find out what happens, you're like, oh, it's not what you're making it out to be. So that's a problem I have a lot of times with the father's rights stuff. Is it's easy for people, especially since a lot of the stuff we're getting it here leaked, but a lot of it is under seal when it has to do with minors, and so you don't just get to have these documents. And with that in mind, you can say all kinds of things that happen. And I will say this once again, and I didn't really talk to Andrew about it at all, and I've written about it and I've talked about it. There's two types of things. There's a court of law and there's a court of equity. Okay. law is simply, hey, there's a statute on the books and the court has to basically follow those things. And there's equity, which is and the family court is combined with a lot of this. They have both of those. And the equity is what's fair. What is fair for this situation? And there's oftentimes you go in there and a judge is making a decision about multiple things. One of those may have to be where he has discretion, he or she has discretion, and they can make a thing out of equity. And the other ones are going to be an issue of law. So sometimes a parent comes out of there and they're all upset. I can't believe the judge made this decision, did it? And sometimes it's like, well, you didn't really have a choice. This was the situation in place. So you didn't have a choice but to go down this, and you want a judge that applies the law. And then on the flip side, there's this other thing right next to it where he or she makes a judgment call because it's an issue of equity, and it's combined in here. So you don't know what you're talking about oftentimes. And so that's part of the battle you get here. And I don't know what that had to do with much of anything, but let's keep going on. And what is your opinion? I've been on the file for 2 weeks. I have some collateral information from the children's doctor, from the agency, from Minnesota Monitoring, and continued custody of the children is currently the safest course of action for the children based on the fact that there was a drug raid. I do want to say, I'm sorry, it's so ADD. You guys are probably just hating me. The reason I brought that up is because Nick is telling us about the case without us and giving us some hints about how it's all wrong without us being able to read all the documents. We're getting some here, which is why sometimes we're like, oh, he's a fucking liar. Other times some things are fine, but that's why I brought that part up. Okay. Agency currently the safest course of action for the children based on the fact that there was a drug raid in the home and cocaine was found in the home, ketamine, and based on the fact that I have a test from the MMR showing a positive cocaine test result for the second youngest child in the home, and that would worry a guardian ad litem. In your opinion, is there any services or conditions that the court could order today that would allow the children the safest return home? I don't believe there are any conditions that would be ordered today, but I'm hoping that we can move to a place where a lot of the things to be ordered by the court, which would allow the children to return to the home as soon as it's safely possible. Not yet today. I think we're really early in the case, and we just want to get the child's hair follicle test back. We've tried a safety networking meeting, and we're not there yet. There are some questions about whether allowing the grandparents to move into the family would be with the children. Do you have any concerns about that? It's a really creative solution. We don't often see that. It's not often possible. I know Ms. Sweep testified, and we'll get to some of hers. I'm reading them in reverse order here. Testified that it's really complicated with licensing, and I'm aware of that. We used to be able to do it frequently, I think, about 5-10 years ago, and I haven't seen it, not because of licensing as an issue, but I have concerns about it. But they're limited yet, so I'm still getting to know the family. The biggest concern for the guardian ad litem at this time, which I've been open with everyone about, understand the position of the parents and their criminal matter, but until a guardian ad litem can figure out how did the drugs get into the home, and how do we prevent them from coming back into the home, and then did that child test positive for cocaine on that test, and do we endure that level something to the kids again? I never want to see children go through a drug raid again. I join in as everybody's sitting in the courtroom today that we test those kids, to not be, we don't want those kids to be exposed to that sort of trauma. So until we get a place where I can be confident that none of those things would happen to the children again, I can't endorse them returning to the home at this time, or having anyone more into the home, or until the grandparents get more education and recognition of drug use. Essentially, I don't think any of us have the ability fully to understand what happened yet. And I think that's going to be a really critical place for the family in ensuring that this never happens again. Ms. Pierce, I don't have any questions. Thank you. The court. All right. The witness. Thanks. The court. Ms. Weber. Thank you. Cross-examination. Ms. Barber, were you at the Rekieta home this morning? I was, she answered. And then that's all we really have of that. Okay, so the sweep one is longer, and she testifies a little bit more. And I'm just going to kind of juxtapose. Maybe I should play this little clip here of Nick's, because it might be helpful, a little bit more helpful than actually reading through this, because the kids have been released. And if the only problem I have with the video here is it's him talking to Dick Masterson, who is his head is just huge, and I don't understand how we even got here. He looks like Peter Pumpkinhead or something like that. It's a little disturbing. Okay, let me see if I could actually find this. Let's go to YouTube. And I almost don't want to do this, but I'm drinking. Okay, let's do this. Let's play this here. This might be a little bit better because we can probably just talk about this one. But man, Dick Masterson's head is huge, and it's really rough to watch. Okay, let's do good old-fashioned stuff. Here we go. Nick talking to Dick about cocaine, and
I think one of your kids are crying because they're starving or want more cocaine. The stuff that got you here to begin with.
Guys, the kids were never on cocaine.
Okay, so a few things. One, I don't know what I'm going to say this over and over and over. I don't know why he's online talking about this. This is where I tend to think, okay, perhaps, the government, he's going to talk about the impossibility that he gave the kids coke. Okay, but they did a drug raid, and there's obviously coke in your place, and everyone's talked about it. I think you're a big fucking liar and we saw you on stream. You've got a lot of problems. It does play into what you think of him as a human, that he is online constantly still, right? I think it does. But anyway.
That's like if that's not what you get from this, the state saying, "Oh yeah, you could have your kid back," then you are a fucking retard. Which I've been telling you, you're a retard from the beginning. But I was willing to let this work out before I say, if you don't get it now, that there was never any issue. You're just straight up fucking retarded.
So we don't know that, because I don't know what happened. But if there is a positive test, I get the state having some caution. I said this as soon as I heard his kids are back. I'm like, oh, they either got him retested, something happened, because they're not going to just place you back in there if a kid tests positive for coke. Matter of fact, they may not put you back in there if you are testing positive for coke, even if the kids don't. But that was a much more egregious issue. So Dick is correct about this part.
If you guys don't realize that if the state had any inkling that we had given a child cocaine.
Okay, but that is so disingenuous. I don't ever believe. I never ever thought that Nick was, and I know there were some people out there, so I shouldn't say disingenuous, that he was giving his child cocaine. I don't believe that was ever the case. I think the worst case scenario, the kid gets it somehow by accident, maybe out in the air, something else happens. I mean, that's what he was trying to say, but it's a hair follicle. It's not a hair dust test. So anyway, let's keep going.
That we would be charged with felony child abuse. Like,
you'd be dead.
The kids would not be around. That would not be a thing. Like, not just not be around. Like, we may not be out of jail until our hearing or until our trial. Like, that's an extremely serious crime.
Yeah.
The problem was, hell, one of the state workers flat out said they don't believe that the child had actually ingested anything.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So once again, that's not the state being against you. Let's read some of these here. JC, our favorite, says Dick isn't nearly as funny as he thinks he is. The only thing that made me laugh was his Steven Crowder bit. I don't know what his Steven Crowder bit was, but I'll go with you there. Damn, I almost missed the show. Yes, you almost did. About your case, and that incriminates. What was it? I don't know what Patty's saying here. About your case, and that incriminates you when you are really talking about some of one Liz's case. I don't know what you're saying. Stop with the crap. Okay, I don't know what's going on. In other words, is it possible for a legal media person to still work even if they have charges over their head? Okay. Yes. You can. Yeah, you just don't talk about your case. I mean, that's plain and simple. Okay. Just don't talk about your case. You can still do your stuff. You can talk about things. Just don't talk about your case. That's kind of the fuck your fake legal shit. You're talking about me? want to kill me, Mike Kaler? I don't know what's going on here. Since mom paid you, the child, you mean the child not going, done, and don't have, I don't know. I don't know what's going on with you guys in the chat, but okay, maybe clarify.
They brought up environmental exposure. I haven't had an opportunity. That was actually my big problem with the whole thing was that that test was dropped on us less than 24 hours before our hearing. We had no opportunity to hire an expert. The state didn't have an expert, and we didn't have. That was the point of my entire objection. Was all I wanted was an objection to the admission of any discussion about the test until we could have it.
By the way, he says on a different clip here. This is a short one here with Lisa. Thank you for clipping this. He says in another one that they came to his house. They being CPS came to his house, and I know they call it something else, but I'm going to call it that, chips or whatever. They came to his house and they said, "Oh, we're going to be at the hearing today later." And he's like, "I didn't even know about the hearing." And then we go, they didn't serve us. And then when they don't have to serve us. And then when we get there, we didn't even get to see the charging document or what the issue is. And we didn't even get it till the next time. And I'm like, I'm not buying it. No offense. I know you have a court-appointed attorney, but one of your objections could have been to the court since you were talking so much is, Your Honor, I would like to see what are the pleadings? I haven't seen any of the filings. I wasn't served. These are easy things you can do if you're going to speak up and talk about your case online in court. Anyway, object over your attorney. Say those things. Get those issues out there. There's statutory issues that have to be taken care of. Otherwise, you're not having your due process. So I don't believe you, Nick, when you say that. And I could be wrong, but as an attorney, you should be objecting to those things. Your attorney should be objecting to those things. Now, here's the deal. I wasn't served. You don't have to show up to court, but it's better to, if you know about it, show up, object. Hey, it depends on what your situation is. As an example, him going there, he could have said, I have not been served. I'm showing up here. Please properly serve me and then give me my time, my continuance, or whatever time it is that I have to prepare. And I need all the documents, or you can't proceed. And the court would likely say, you are correct. We will give you time to do that. He's supposed to be served. Serve this gentleman right now. You can serve him right now. And he would still get his due process time. Now, sometimes you don't care because you're like, I want this to keep moving forward. I want my kids back. I want my kids back as much as possible. So you need to get out there and get the kids, blah, blah, blah. And you need to get through the court. That could happen as well. But I don't know that I actually believe it. So let's keep going.
Reviewed.
Yeah.
Or a continuance so that we could have it reviewed. Because when the state told us about the test, I fucking lost my mind.
Yeah.
I said, that's impossible. That's fucking impossible. And by the way, the state worker tried to lie to us and said that false positives on hair follicle tests are impossible. They said they cannot produce a false positive.
Okay. Is that a lie or is that an opinion? I mean, I don't know.
That's the state, ladies and gentlemen.
Really? What if you misread the document right now? What about that?
What? That doesn't make any sense. He's talking about someone saying that it can't be a false positive, but listen to this. I don't understand this.
That's the state.
False positive.
People ask, why didn't you get the child retested? We tried. They wouldn't do it.
Mm-mm.
They wouldn't do it.
Yeah, of course not. Once they get what they need, they're done.
You don't tell the other side. And by the way, I hate the state, all this same stuff. You don't get to go and just tell the other side. You go retest them. No, what you do is you make a motion in court to have this done so that you can have the same evidence, but yet from your side, from another expert. Oh, you know what? We're going to get another test done. I'm going to have the court order this done so that because it seems a little impractical or improbable that this would be the case. Much like Nick. Nick got tested once. He didn't like the results. He didn't turn it over, but he had to get retested. So,
yeah. Actually, the exact quote was the county is not interested in pursuing a second test.
Yeah.
That was because I said that's impossible. There's no fucking way that test is accurate. Not a chance. But it was amazing. The whole thing has been so fucking insane. The last thing I was saying, I don't know where I got cut off, but the last thing I was saying was the fail rate on hair follicle tests for cocaine is 35%. Yeah. Across all ages and populations. Is actually higher amongst kids. False positives, false negatives. It's not a reliable test. And there's tons of information as to it not being reliable. My biggest problem with it was that we never got to fight it at all.
Mm.
But hey, why didn't we get to?
Okay, you didn't get to fight it. Obviously, it didn't get entered, or what happened. But let's then how did it get thrown out?
fight it because the government was happy with it just being out there.
Yeah, I don't. I seem to remember something in California where they kicked it out. They took it out of rotation in LA because it's racist. Because the test is racist against black people.
Horrifically racist.
It actually is. Like,
yes.
If you test a black guy and a white guy who do the same amount of cocaine in their hair, the black guys will test way higher. So they
okay. So once again, I don't believe him. Now the court can't here in California can't order a hair follicle test because they have to use the least invasive test possible. So maybe different with CPS. So I mentioned this when I first found out they did a hair follicle test, that I was kind of surprised about that. They will order, a piss test and other ones, but not the hair follicle. Now, we often have clients go and do these things just to show that they are clean and, it's on a voluntary basis, but it's not going to be used in court unless you agree to doing this. So Dick is a little wrong, but that's fine. That's fine.
I have to take it out. They should take it out everywhere. It's totally bullshit. The hair shit.
A black person tests on average 4.5 times higher levels than a blonde person when the exact same amount of cocaine is ingested in controlled tests.
Mm-hmm.
So if people don't know how they do this, when they do controlled cocaine testing, they actually do intravenous administration of cocaine to make sure that the amounts are stable. They use medical grade cocaine that they get from specific laboratories. This is all figured out because they have different types of cocaine testing. I've had to read a lot of cocaine testing, shockingly. They do different types of it, though. They have some where it's self-reported, like, hey, I use this much cocaine, blah, 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 blah. But when they do the scientific testing on the hair follicle studies, they use a specific grade of cocaine that they get from specific government resources, and then they inject it so that it's injected at a consistent rate, consistent with people. And people may not realize this, but the measurements of cocaine in tests are consistent amongst body sizes as well, because it's the weight of cocaine present per weight of the hair, not weight of the person. So when you have like some tests like blood alcohol and shit, it really is heavily dependent on the size of the person. A bigger person can have more alcohol in their blood, and it's a percentage. But on cocaine, it's the weight of the hair. It's 1.5 grams of hair. No matter who it is, they use the same amount of hair to do the test. So when they do picograms per milligram, it's per milligram of hair that they use. But they're unreliable tests entirely. And so when we found out about it, the first thing we wanted that test redone, because there was no fucking way.
They should have wanted it redone. Like, you can't be a responsible adult and say, oh, one of these kids tested positive in the hair. Like, let's just run it again and see. That's probably obviously bullshit.
Oh, and lots of people make a big deal about some metabolite. The metabolite that was found, because people are like, oh, there's a metabolite. It's actually called.
Okay, I'm bored already. So let's move on from there. Let's go to some of this sweep stuff, because there is some good stuff here. By the way, I had to kick that one person out, put them on a timeout because they were a little spammy in there. Nick gave up on alcohol. Now, I think it's in here, and with these transcripts that we're going to be walking through, that they actually say that isn't it true? He's given tests that he is he's tested negative except for alcohol. Oh yeah, it's like, okay, so as Magoo says, no, he didn't, just on stream allegedly. Piss test seems more invasive to me than taking a hair from me. I get it. That's just kind of the standard thing. So that's what it is. He even said he tested positive for alcohol on his first drug test because he wasn't ordered to abstain from drinking. Yeah, these are the kind of shit things that he's a lawyer about it. He was a subject of the cocaine testing. Yes, smile and be nice. Be happy said, you have to ask Dick right now, was there cocaine in-house? Are you using cocaine? Your wife using? Now, Dick's not going to ask him those questions because Dick knows the answer, right? And so now you can't put Nick on the spot. No one's coming on here other than to just stroke him off. So Dick's not going to do anything other than be exactly what he is. I would hate to be that moron Nick's lawyer. Yeah. Congrats on hitting 1K. Thank you, Gordon. I appreciate you guys, everybody in the chat doing that. Okay, let's go through some of this sweep. So she's kind of the social worker. Once again, a lot of stuff. And then maybe I'll just do this. His dad also testified. Maybe I should look at this one real quick. This is a summary from Kiwi Farms about the dad testifying. And we'll just walk through there. Interesting new public matter record attached. The state rests, and finally the defense gets to present their star witness to prove once and for all that Nick's a good boy who done do nothing. I can't. Sorry, I'm not too culturally with it. Yes, notwithstanding the prior transcripts expressed, quote, concerns that both sets of grandparents were in the home the week of being before the removal. Grandpa Bob is here to assure everyone that he has never, ever, ever seen any unsafe parenting by Nick, and indeed has not seen him intoxicated or even Nick to be under the influence of something. Indeed, he has never even so much as witnessed any sort of subtle change in Nick's personality in Nick or Kayla that gave rise to this sort of concern that everything's wrong. So I guess that means he's never watched his son's show over the past year, if ever. On the other hand, maybe there's just not much of a keen eye for those sorts of things, as he's apparently lived so sheltered an existence as to, quote, not know that what someone who uses drugs looks like in the first place, unquote. Such that he would need YouTube videos brushing up what you or I might call basic common sense, but that Mr. Magoo, hey, he's talking about you, Magoo, Mr. Magoo routine seems less credible when considering his acknowledgement that he saw cocaine in person in his younger days, along with, quote, what a joint looks like, and a, quote, a bong, or needles being the sorts of paraphernalia to look for in the backtrack of to how a lot of this knowledge is pretty much from television as opposed to personal experience. Sure. Signs of drug use aside, at least he had no choice but to acknowledge messes of clothes in piles waiting to be washed. Ugh. Which apparently was such a problem that when anyone would stay at Bob's house for a couple of days, Bob could see the messiness proliferating from the house from house to house like a virus spreading from host to host. That checks out. But don't worry, surely it will be all swept up by April, whom he considers a mere replacement of their old nanny Channy, and with no awareness of other complexity of that relationship. I do have that transcript from the dad. Maybe I'll save that next week and go through it. We're flying out to Portland tomorrow for a wedding, and I got an issue already. I don't want to get into it. It's going to be problematic. Here we go. Looking to the future of a more supervisory role, Bob curiously thinks it's one thing if Nick and Kayla give a reasonable answer for drug paraphernalia being in plain view and would only, quote, press the issue, unquote, if the answer is unreasonable. What would such a reasonable answer? And this would be a great transcript to go through, because this is you're basically having the testimony of the person that wants to be in charge, and that you need to have that person take and they weren't prepped at all on this. You got to have, but he's walking a tight line because tightrope in a sense, or white line, I don't know what it is. He's walking it very close because you've got the criminal aspect here. And if he admits that he's seen his son do coke, if he admits that he thinks there was a problem in the house, now you use his testimony in court, or the criminal side, against Nick. Indeed, apparently the only scenario where he would call child protection about drug paraphernalia in plain view would be if the kids were in danger, as though there's some non-dangerous scenario that would not call it in. And the child protection side, he certainly doesn't want to speculate on whether or not he'd call law enforcement if things got out of hand. Snitches get stitches, after all. But don't worry yourselves, you pesky Scandinavian incel prudes, because Bob assures you that he's, quote, 100%, unquote, certain that the grandchildren would be safe under his watchful eye, and there is no doubt in his mind that they are absolutely no danger. When in Nick and Kayla's care, yep, there's is complete confidence in their ability to take care of the kids, despite all we've seen. In any event, reunification is utmost priority, whereas a healthy, good environment is right under the priority. First things first. How about a show of hands? If and when the time comes for Bob to bear witness to the relapse, who thinks he will immediately do the right thing and report to the county? And who thinks he'd just as likely to give Nick a high five? Okay, so that's kind of the summary of the dad's thing there. When your client won't shut the fuck up, I would quit. Acknowledge to you, Magoo. Yeah, thanks for the validation there. Okay, so let's maybe we could go through some of this here until we can't anymore. I'm sorry, I had this all prepped and ready, and then it just got fucked over on me. I don't know what exactly happened, but here we go. The petitioner appeared through his attorneys, Kristen Pierce and Rachel Molesbury Candiyohi. Okay, I got that right, you Minnesotans out there. The mother, Kayla Rekieta, appeared personally along with her attorney, John Mueller. The father, Nicholas Rekieta, appeared personally along with his attorney, Don Weber. Okay, that's the one he really knocks. He says, this attorney was horrible. She didn't know this. She didn't know that. I still don't understand why you would do something so important and have... let me make sure. Whoa. Whoops. That one. Okay, that one. Let's go to the next one. Okay, there we go. And have a public defender. The children, I redacted the names. Rekieta appeared along with their attorney. Christy Barber, guardian ad litem, appeared personally. Also present, Alicia Sweep, social worker with the Candiahohi County Health and Human Services, foster parents and paternal parents, Rekieta's. The court, all right. For the record then, the master of the welfare of the children, Kayla, is it Rekieta? Yeah. Okay, Rekieta and Nicholas Rekieta, court file, they gave the number. This matter comes for continued hearing to admit, deny meeting, hearing, and then can I just have all the parties identify themselves? I'll start with Miss Weber. Thank you, Don Weber, representing the mother, Nicholas Rekieta. Okay, that's hilarious. You represent the father, Nicholas Rekieta. Oh, are you sure? No, just kidding, father. I'm Nicholas Rekieta, the father. Oh, Nick must have loved that when his attorney can't get it right. All right. I'm Kate. He's got a point. If he says his attorney is so pathetic, didn't even know. We all make mistakes. Listen to how I talk. I'm Kayla Rekieta, the mother. All right. John Mueller representing the mother, Kayla Rekieta. All right. Miss Griner, Carter Griner. I represent the children. Gives the names. Are sitting behind me in the gallery. Court. Okay. And then is there 2 children? They are present, or is that just 3? To my knowledge, they're not. I believe the other 2 are under 10. All right, years of age. And then Mr. Barber, Ms. Barber, guardian ad litem. Yes, Christy Barber, guardian ad litem in the gallery. We have the paternal grandparents and maternal grandparents who are foster parents, and then a support, April M. Holte. He brought his bitch to court with him. I hate that. Sometimes parties can't help but bring their mom, their dad, their best friend. They gotta have a support, whatever. It's like you're a big boy, you're a big girl. Don't bring your side hoe to court with you. And he brought April to court with him. Wow. All right then. Alicia Sweep, Candiahohi County Services. Rachel Molesbury, assistant Candiahohi County attorney. Kristen Pierce, first assistant Candiahohi County attorney. All right. Then I know this was set for continued emergency protective hearing, EPC. Is this going to the matter of welfare of the children, Rekieta? Witness to be examined, EPC, or yes, it is. Okay. And then by the way, I could get this wrong because this is really hard to read. And then are we going to take testimony, Miss Pierce? Yes. Okay. Then who do you want? Miss Sweep, Alicia Sweep, Your Honor. And Miss Sweep, do you want to stand? Do you want to come forward and then be sworn? You can tell I'm not familiar with this courtroom. There is the witness stand. Do you want to? Okay. Just a lot of bullshit back and forth. Having duly sworn, she presents affirmation as follows. Miss Pierce, you may proceed. Thank you. Please state your name. Alicia Sweep, SWEEP. And what is your occupation? I am a children's service supervisor. And what are your job duties as children's supervisor? I oversee children protective intake, investigate, and family assessment, as well as oversee the case duties that support these positions. I oversee the investigations and family assessments that are opened with Candiahohi County Child Protective Services. How long have you worked for them? I've worked for them, I'm just kind of briefing through this, 10 years. How many of those years were working Child Protective Services? Child protection, I have worked in child protection for 8 years. Did you receive a report involving Nicholas and Kayla Rekieta? I did. And when was that? 23rd of May. Can you explain what the report was? The report was law enforcement was going to the house of the Requietas to execute a search warrant. Upon executing the search warrant, they had found substances believed to be cocaine. And what was located in the house? Located in the house was drug paraphernalia, firearms, ammunition, cocaine, ketamine. Approximately how much cocaine? Approximately 26.67 grams. So over 26 grams. Yeah, that's kind of their standard. And how are you aware that this substance was identified? I was just aware that it had been field tested. And how did you go? And did you go to the home? I did. And what did you learn when you went to the home? I went to the home. I learned that there were still in the process of the search, that when they entered the home was very cluttered. It was hard to walk around the home without stepping on clothing, bedding, blankets. I learned that they were in the process of locating safes and opening the safes in the home. And were there any children present? Yes. Were all the children subject to this petition present? No. Who was not present? One child was not present. I didn't redact that one. How are the... okay, we'll just keep going on here. What kind of drug test? Okay, since that time, have you been able to test the drugs on the children? Yes. Hair follicle test, 500. Okay, it gave the value. We know that. Let's see if there's... I received notification from Minnesota Monitoring that Mr. and Mrs. Rekieta have revoked the release information from Candido High County to any further testing of them, drug testing. Have you been to the home of Mr. and Mrs. Rekieta? I have. And when was that? That was 28th, I believe. I have been to Tuesday following Memorial Day. And were you allowed in the home? I was allowed into the home. And were there any rooms that you were not allowed access to? Yes. Can you explain? Mr. Rekieta had wanted to show me the 22, a piece of artwork that has a emblazoned or something, 22 caliber empty shell case. What kind of art is this? You have a fucking, what is this? The dog's playing poker. He has a piece of art with a 22 shell, but his house is so fucking dirty and messy that this shell casing came off and that was on the floor. And then he's trying to present to her, look, I've got this artwork. That's why they found the shell casing in the house. That's why. Now, were you using this bullet casing to do coke with? I mean, I think I've heard Aaron Humolti talk about that. That's what they were doing. But he's like, no. It's artwork that just happened. Beautiful. The most awesome artwork. When I got to the door, he stated, you do not need to come here. So he wouldn't let her in the bedroom. Let me get back there. I followed Mr. Rekieta to the bedroom, and as he had indicated, it was in his and Kayla's bedroom. Then when he got there, she said, you don't have to come in here. He went in, shut the door, retrieved the artwork, and then came back out. Were there controlled substances located during the search? I believe they were located in the master bedroom, and Mr. and Mrs. Rekieta, as well as the bathroom that adjoined the bedroom. Have any safety meetings with Mr. and Mrs. Rekieta? Yes. When was that? That was yesterday. Part of the safety meeting were either Mr. and Mrs. Rekieta able to identify what any type of signs were. I believe they were. I stepped out to go to the bathroom while they were being reviewed. I do not know the other staff who were present. I do know the other staff that were present in the courtroom who were present in the safety meeting. Have Mr. and Mrs. Rekieta been able to address the plan around the drug use found at the house? No. Why not? When we questioned around what was found in the home and around the drugs found in the home or drugs use, Mr. and Mrs. Rekieta have stated they do not want to answer any questions regarding that, which is smart. Okay, because this is the big dilemma that these guys are in, which is they want their kids back. They got them back, but they could have probably got them back quicker if they, cooperate and do what they need to get the kids. But all of that could come into the criminal side, and who knows what they've admitted to these people to get their kids back that may cause problems. Because the civil side, the kids, they're just like, fine, we'll do what we can do, taking steps, but you're not admitting it. So that's it. Are there any services that court could order today that would allow the children to return home safely? No. And why not? We have not been able to establish sobriety by Mr. and Mrs. Rekieta. We have not been able to establish how those substances were found or got into the home. So we have been unable to do any safety planning around returning the children. So listen to that. Part of the problem they have there is they need to establish the sobriety, and it's the coke on the kid. No one thinks that this kid, I believe that the test results making a little high. We all kind of jumped to like, what? That's really bad. So maybe it's a false positive. It's odd that you get a false positive of a drug that just happened to be very readily available in the house. So there's also that. You got to throw that in there, right? If these kids, if you just are testing these kids and they're coming up negative, but there's no drugs found in the home, then okay. There's a positive, but there's no drugs found in the home. There's no reporting about people going, there's problems over here. There's no live streams of Nick looking like he's fucking hammered and cocaine on his face and all this stuff that went into, we read with the warrant and whatnot. If that wasn't the case, then, you know, you start to like, look, this is, I don't know, but there's coke in the home and then there's coke on the kid, or at least the test. So we got a question here, right? You got to do your due diligence. I understand that. And that Nick doesn't like that, but that's the truth on the matter. And if you hadn't had coke in the house, then this test would probably have been much less significant, right? They haven't established sobriety. We've been able to establish how these substances were found and got into the home. So we have been unable to do any safety planning around returning the children. And you indicated that the children are currently placed with a relative. Is that the least restrictive and most home-like setting? I mean, they have standards, which I appreciate they at least walk through, which is, look, we don't want them in a, and the judge talked about that. We'd mentioned that last time with he or she did not want them doing supervised visits in a facility. That's not what we want. We got to get them out. Let's get them to their parents. Let's get them to grandparents. Let's get them to that. They got them home already, so the court did what they could do. But for Pete's sake, there's coke in your house. There's coke on a test, which maybe or may not be true, but we've got to figure that out, and so it makes sense. Do the children have a prior relationship with those relatives? Yes, they were the evidence. Are there services or examinations that the court could pursue today? Man, I don't know. Order today that would assist in sharing the reunification, starting the reunification process. Yes, I believe that the court would order chemical use assessment or substance use assessment, as well as drug testing by Mr. and Mrs. Rekieta, as well as anybody who's going to be in the caregiving role within their home or have access to the home where it may be unsupervised access, as well as complying with the agency and identifying how the children will not be exposed to further substance. So all that seems, look, I get it, from a libertarian perspective, you may not like any of these things. However, this is the situation. These are reasonable standards to have in this situation, all to try to get, the court wants these kids back there. Even this by Ms. Sweep, who he hates, they're like, yeah, look, you're testing, I mean, oftentimes they won't, in my cases, you know, family court, they will not let the parents, they'll have to do a supervised visit 6 months, and then you're going to be moving out of this. You're going to show me 6 months of sobriety before I get you out of supervised facility visitation. Okay. Is there any type of visitation that they're having with the children right now? They are having supervised visitation, face-to-face contact by our agency at this time. See, they need to get that out. That's not healthy. And they are being supervised phone contact, Zoom contact by the foster parents as well as the paternal grandparents. What are your recommendations for ongoing visitation? Our recommendations would be the agency still continue to supervise visits. See, they didn't like that last time, the judge. What was the purpose of yesterday's safety meeting? The purpose was to develop a plan around how to get from agency supervising to support supervising face-to-face contact. Were you able to come up with a plan? Let me get here. I'm missing out on some of this chat stuff. Magoo says he feels acknowledged. I think we talked about that. There we go. Nick's kids must have lightweight hair. Yeah. Damn, I left my DNA on the like button. Thank you. Gross. Dwayne says, I wonder if Nick's bedroom smelled like a French whorehouse. Dude, it's got to be bad because he's got 2 women. He had another guy in there at one point. They don't clean up after themselves. It's a drug den. Popcorn Power. I don't think that Nick admitted to anything. Yeah, I think you're right. The sad part is that Nick is going nuts and behaving badly only to get something that is probably on offer for all first-time plea. Yeah, perhaps. Remember, part of the problem that he has, though, is there's that gun charge, too. So it's all this enhancements that can go in there. We did that. Everyone agrees with popcorn. There we go. Okay. And what are the concerns around having supervised visits at the facility? The concerns would be that both paternal and maternal grandparents have stated that they are unfamiliar with somebody under the influence would look like. Both the paternal grandparents have stated that they do not believe that Mr. and Mrs. Rekieta have any type of substance abuse or Rekieta use any type of substance. We're not able to identify any warning signs of concerns that would make them feel like they were using substances. And so it is the agency's stance that these seeds to be more education, there needs to be more education around how to identify. Okay, so they talk about that, about like identifying this, going into it. And I don't have any other further questions. All right, Ms. Barbara, do you have any questions for the witness? No, Your Honor. Thank you. All right. Then Miss Weber, thank you, Your Honor. Miss Weber, that's I think Nick's attorney. She's going to cross-examine here. Have you had had an opportunity to see some drug testing that Mr. Rekieta did yesterday? So maybe this is where Nick's like not happy, because I was like, what is going on with this line of questioning? Yes, he's shown that he handed it to Ms. Pierce in the hallway. All right. And what's a negative for everything except alcohol? Are you aware of that? Okay. So by the way, let's go back here, because there was a point that Ms. Sweep wanted to make, which was ordering them to do drug or alcohol substance assessment. We often do those in family court. If party has this, it can be ordered by the court. It can be ordered, through family court services that they recommend that this happen. I've had my clients go out and do this themselves. So what you do is you go to an expert, and they come in and they have a full-on interview, maybe multiple days. They go through your social media. The other party is able to submit their documents that they think, whatever, the reasons or evidence or whatnot, and that person then does this whole assessment. And, I had a client that had multiple DUIs, and, she's like, look, he's been sober for a while, but it's recurring issues. And so then they identify the problem. They identify how this person has those problems. And then that's a part of the assessment, but also part of that is, how do they get out of this rut? What's a recommendation going forward? So that would be possible. That would be good here in this case, because it would be interesting to see if, by the way, when you see this, oftentimes it's like drug abuse. Alcohol is not, and by the way, this is pretty cool beer. Happy Hops. It's can you see it here? Okay. It's a Russian River beer. Anyway, alcohol is not a good, because oftentimes people self-medicate and they have other issues, and it doesn't enhance. And so those problems could be, drinking might not be the best solution. I'm not an expert in that, but that would be an interesting thing to see. Okay. His drug test. So that some indicia of Mr. Rekieta's sobriety, correct? It may be. Well, it was done in Minnesota monitoring. Do you believe that there's a problem with the testing, or no, it's just, it doesn't state that what specimen was tested. No, if we go something that showed that what was urine that was tested, or that you're looking at, that it was a UA, I can't even read that, something else. Yeah, because then I would be able to establish something of a time frame of what I know testing is indicative of. Are you a certified toxicologist? No, I understand I understand that you do get some training as in your role as a social worker, correct? Correct. But you are not qualified to offer an expert opinion on drug testing and drug testing results, correct? Correct. You mentioned you testified, that your first came into the home. That was during the process of the search, where folks were in there searching. Yes. All right. Kind of chaotic scene. Kind of? That's the question. All right. Kind of chaotic scene. Kind of. And you said that the kids were there except one of them. Correct. Did you know at the time, or the child did you know at that time which child that was? No. Another name I didn't redact. Okay. Why is that? Because as the 4 children were sitting outside talking while someone was inside with Mr. Rekieta gathering belongings, I had talked to the children, asked each their name, asked them if they had any additional things that they needed. Possibly, this is not all redacted. I'm going to have to just skip here. Let's just skip around. Okay, you're relying on the report of someone else, correct? Correct. And you've been to the home now since drugs have been eliminated from the home, correct? Since a warrant was executed, and I know you didn't get to all access, but that, from what you saw, were there any drugs lying around? I had access to the kitchen, living room, dining room area, and the hallway, and the main area, and the level of the floor. And I did not see any drugs in those areas at the time I was there. What about drug paraphernalia? No. Was it clean? Yes. Clothes lying around? No. No clothes lying around? No. And I know sometimes when we suspect that there is drug use going on, we look at the conditions of the home. Is that true? Yes. And were the conditions of the home at the time suspicious to you of possible drug use? I did not see any drug paraphernalia or substance. Okay. Was there any food left lying around? Dirty dishes? Not that I saw. And by the way, I don't know if it's in here or Nick testified to himself that his dad basically came to help him. So I didn't have that redacted, so a good thing it wasn't on the screen. Let's get back here. Now the real BS comes out. They didn't think Nick was using. Yeah, the parents, exactly. I remember in the 70s, people were worried about contact highs, testing positive because you went to a party with marijuana was smoked, but not by you. Yeah. Reefer madness, maybe. Someone doesn't think Nick was using. Bullshit. The CPS may not feel like they can prove Nick had been using, but you have to be an idiot to think Nick wasn't using. I totally agree. And by the way, I don't think the court even, I think the court would for the children's side here would totally do that. They would say that there's enough plausible evidence here to, and the way it is in California to have court ordered drug testing, and they're already past that. There just has to be reliable evidence that would point towards a problem type of thing. I don't know the exact wording here, but that's the idea, which is you have to have some sort of evidence. It has to be plausible. There has to be, that gives you a lead that would be the way that you'd surmise that there's going to be an issue. And with that in mind, then they could go ahead and drug test you. That is enough what they have. They found drugs in the home. That's solid enough, I think, for them to present that. Okay, let's finish this up and then head out. Okay. And one of the things that you mentioned was that the safety of the people, and in this case, the grandparents need more education. Yes. And somebody under the influence. Okay. And if they're never seen anyone under the influence, how would they know? Then we would provide education to the grandparents on that. Okay. Have you started that? We have started with that. Does what we know it would look like and what has been there. I've talked with them with what has been their this is hard to read, experience with drug use, as well as anybody to use the substances. And when you ask the questions, do you know anybody that used substances? What did they mention Mr. Rekieta? No. Okay. So that's kind of like the attorney going, so obviously he's not using drugs because they didn't mention him. Or maybe it's like, well, they didn't, because they're not that good at recognizing this. That could be the problem. That could be a problem there too. No, as far as a statement that you overheard, okay, there was one here. She overheard, let me see if I can find that one. Because it is somewhat important. Maybe that's where I skipped it, but let's see where it just, I think it must be on this page. As far as the statement that you overheard, allegedly, Mrs. Rekieta telling one of the kids the consequences of our actions, that's pretty broad, correct? Yes. So evidently, I'm going to stop this because it's not all redacted there. So evidently, Miss Sweep overheard Kayla telling her son that there are consequences to your actions, which is pretty, shut up, don't say things. Yeah, there's no expectation of privacy in those cases. Okay, we already talked about that one. Remember, CPS is not seeking to jail Nick. CPS is there to make sure the kids are properly taken care of. Absolutely correct. Oh yeah, Nick's father was lying. He caught Nick doped up at least once on stream. I can't imagine he didn't. That's true. That's not true. Cheech and Chong, does that give away my age? Patty Leather, a father is not going to say anything that hurts his kids. Let me just say, I don't believe that's true. I mean, if you're a grandparent, and this is where it depends on where you're at in life, right? So his dad is in a tight spot here because he can't say, he wants to help him get the kids back. He wants to then probably on his own time work on getting his son's shit together. But until then, he doesn't want him to go to jail. That's going to be worse for the kids. He doesn't want his kids to be taken away. That's worse for them as well. So he's trying to do what he can there. So he's going to come across to the court that Nick doesn't have a problem. He's not going to do anything that's going to jeopardize the criminal side. Perfectly fine. I get that. It's also not going to necessarily help you in a place where you're going to, as we read here from the Minnesota Public Records dude, it makes Papa Smurf look like a total dumbass, right? But I don't know that he is. He's got to kind of come down that route. So when you have here, a father's not going to say anything that hurts his kid. Now, there's been cases when you're a grandfather, let's say it's not the criminal issue and it's just the CPS thing and you want your kid to be taken care of and you're concerned about the grandkids. At this point, this is what my whole thing when I first started going on these rants here about the Nick Rada stuff was, it's the kids. Fuck dad, F Mr. Rekieta. Who cares? If he gets going to get his shit together, he'll get his shit together. And maybe taking away the kids is the only way that it's going to actually get him to that spot. But at this point, let's make sure the kids are okay so that they're not perpetually, in a mess and screwed up. Because as a grandparent, I see this way too much when I have a client and they have the grandparent there. It just happened not too long ago. And that person is almost enabling. And so there's never a sense. And at some point, if you step back and you just say, you know what? And I've had multiple times this happen with the grandparents. We're like, you know what? My child is screwing up, but I'm here to make sure that the grandkids are okay. Because that child, the adult, is an adult, and they're not an adult, the kids. So I'm going to be saying what I can to make sure that the kids, they're the number one goal. And if I have to shit on the kid, then so be it. My own child, that is. And at some point, you kind of respect that, I think. I've talked about this myself, which is married my wife. She had 2 kids. I had 2 kids. Their dad's not in the picture. And, he was real total screw up and drugs and all kinds of problems. But his parents, the grandparents, were still kind of there. And at one point, the grandma came and said, and these are the ones this is grandmother. She came to us and said, you know what? If my son can't see the kids, then we're not going to see the kids. And I'm like, but he can see the kids. He's just got to go through rehab. He's got to get his shit together. And he's just deciding not to see the kids. It's on him, actually. We haven't seen him in like 8 years. So the grandma decided she wasn't going to see the kids either. What a piece of shit, right? What a piece of shit. Just saying that out there. Up in Smoke. Oh, great movie, by the way. There are squares there. Okay. My parents have seen me drink. Mine have not. I'm just saying that. I come from a pretty conservative religious background. Mine have not. Best place for kids is with their parents, not with the state. Not with the state, almost always. Totally agree. I totally agree. But sometimes, just like my now kids, it's better that they are with me and not their dad. Okay, so there's other options out there, and it's amazing how these kids are amazing kids, and it's quite astounding how good kids could come through these situations at times. So, stepkid's father, rather, don't publicly defame your stepkid's fool. I didn't. Stepkid's father, rather. I'm not defaming him. He's a piece of shit. If he wanted to come see him, and by the way, you adopt them, and so it doesn't matter anyway. They're over 18. If he wanted to see them all these years, could have easily come and done it. The best story we have, though, at one point, some chick calls my wife. By the way, he was stealing kids' credit, doing all kinds of stuff because this is kind of the piece of shit he is. We got a call from this chick, and she's like, "Hey," she calls my wife, and I don't know how she got her info, and she's like, "This guy," and she just says his name, the ex, and she's like, he he owes me money. And she's like, okay, well, that's, we haven't seen him in like 10 years or so. I don't know. What's the deal? She's like, well, so I'm a prostitute. Oh, she's called herself an escort. I'm an escort. So he was going to pay, and he paid me in fake money. We gave him his mom's phone number. I prefer concubine. Okay. Yeah. So I don't know. Do you think I'm defaming some loser? He can file a defamation suit. Everything's true. And so it's the problem. All right, everybody. Until next week, we will be back next week with some more fun. I don't know what we're going to do, but here's the new intro. We'll use it as the outro. Until next week. See ya.
Things are going to start happening to me now.
I think Tyler is amazing.
And I'm a fan of this show. I've watched several episodes.
Thank you, Tyler. Thank you, Tyler. You stink, Tyler.
Never promise crazy a baby.
Oh, I like that. That's a cool idea.
Are either of you homosexuals?
I go both ways. What do you think?
You mean like flaming or?
No, we're not homosexual, but we are willing to learn.
But I do wonder, for others, in other cases, whether libertarianism today is just an excuse for many on the right to act selfishly.
Look at me. Then some fat asses in Washington started having opinions. The Olympic Committee started having opinions. You bitch, I know you! You started writing your opinions.
And it just makes me wonder, you're dead, bitch. You know, why are you doing this to this poor guy?
I don't care. I'm a libertarian. What I'm getting is,
Did you vote for Joe Jorgensen or Trump?
Who?
Joe Jorgensen. That was the perfect answer. Thank you.